Julius Malema announced last week that his new party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, will be registering with the Independent Electoral Commission following its National Assembly. Malema said the party would contest the 2014 elections and was already collecting funds. I'm joined now by EFF leaders Floyd Shivambu and Andile Mngxitama to discuss their new party. Welcome to the show. I have to say, I saw the Sunday Times yesterday, 1 billion rand, that's what the government has offered to pay for a luxury game reserve, Mala Mala. And I thought of you guys because you've made land a big part of your platform. Andile Mngxitama, then let me start with you. What do you make of that?
Firstly, we want to congratulate the people of Zimbabwe for a very peaceful, credible elections, and to congratulate ZANU-PF for winning those elections. I think it's a vindication of the correctness of their position on the land question, and now also on
You don't think they consider the fact that here's a man who's 89 years old, has been in power for 33 years, and has failed to do anything about that economy?
Well, if you look at the numbers, everybody, including the World Bank, by the way, as telling us that the economic situation in Zimbabwe is improving rapidly. But not only that, it is improving under different conditions where the Zimbabwean people own Zimbabwe. The land has returned to Zimbabwean people, and now they're taking the economy. They are, in my view, 300 years ahead of us.
Let's move back to the land question. 1 billion rand government spending on a land deal. What do you make of it? What's your view on that?
EFF has come out to say that this is indefensible. It doesn't make economic sense. It does not make political sense. It is part of the problem of what is called the willing buyer, willing seller process, where in South Africa, our government believe that we must buy back the land. And what it means is, given our history where land we know was taken by force, was stolen from black people. In fact, land in South Africa is stolen property. When government does what it does, take R1 billion, that is a huge chunk of the budget, by the way, give it to one person to buy back our land. This is unacceptable.
What alternative do you have to offer? Because what the ANC government and Minister Gugu Nkwinti is doing is exactly what this government has said to him. The Constitution says that's willing buyer, willing seller, and so you have to pay for this at market prices. So I don't see anything wrong with what he's doing.
But this is precisely the problem. 20 years later, we have redistributed about 6 to 8% of the land. It means, if we follow that, to get the 30%, we'll need 100 years. This process is not working. Now, you can't insist on...
How are you going to change it?
You just expropriate without paying compensation.
You can't do that. You know, it was your former party, Floyd Shivambu, that said, according to our constitution, 2/3 majority to change the constitution and therefore change in fact, 75% if you want to touch the Bill of Rights.
No, but I think you also have misread the constitution, because the current constitution... Yes, guarantees private property, but it also says that for public interest and public purposes, the state should establish an expropriation act that should guide how government expropriates land.
Yes,
what has happened thus far?
It still says
what has happened thus far is because
it still says compensate.
No,
it doesn't say
it does not say that. It says for public purposes and public interest you can expropriate. You do not need to compensate in the value that is determined by the market.
But you still need to
compensate.
You're saying you shouldn't compensate.
Let me quickly finish. What the ANC government has been doing since 1994 is to run away from the Expropriation Act, which is going to empower the state to expropriate land for public purposes and public interest. They've misused the political power that they have currently, even when they had 2/3 to take the land.
So
to
you
benefit
acknowledge that they
else.
need a 2/3 majority to get through all these things?
No, look, you need a 2/3. Even when they had 2/3, you don't need 2/3 to pass an act of parliament. There are processes.
Are you
that
saying
have to be
the
dealt with
EFF is likely to get 2/3 on Andile?
We do not need 2/3 to deal with the land expropriation. We can take land
you still
through
have
the
to
act
pay
of
for
parliament.
it. What I'm saying to you is that you can't take away the compensation aspect.
There's nothing in the Constitution, by the way, that says you must pay a market related value. There's nothing in the Constitution that says willing buyer, willing seller.
Yes.
The big problem of the ANC is this. They have not tested, but there's not a single court, constitutional court decision that had said you can't expropriate.
You can't expropriate.
No, there isn't.
You can
expropriate,
decision. But you need to compensate.
Well, but
so whatever you may think of this man, Mr. Michael Rattray, whatever you may think about him, you still have to pay him something.
There
maybe
is a
not a
determination, by the way, Geldenis determination by the Land Claims Court, and it was very clear. You take out the subsidies, you take up all the other unnecessary market-related values, and then you can pay compensation at use value. That possibility is there. Now, the ANC has totally refused to test this. And when it comes to black people, by the way, if, for instance, land was taken from your people, there's a town now, our government forces you to accept what they call a standard settlement offer. In other words, you will not be paid as a black person a market value. So why can't we do the same with the private landowners?
If this doesn't come through and you don't win the election next year, are you prepared to go to war to fight for this?
We're not going to go to war, but we're going to participate in land redistribution through land occupation.
Those are the land grabs of the nature that happened in Zimbabwe.
We cannot wait any longer for the people of South Africa to get their land back.
Floyd, are you saying that you will occupy white-owned land and property in pursuance of this policy of yours?
Yes, it's part of our policies. We have expressed it in our founding manifesto that part of the land redistribution strategy and approach of economic freedom fighters is land occupation.
What happens when the state then protects the property rights of these
owners?
Look,
I think that the state will then have to understand, like the Zimbabwean government understood that when the people occupy land.
But that's the government. In this case, it will be you, not in power.
Look, we're fighting for political power, and as things stand now, majority of the people are going to be supporting economic freedom fighters on the route that we're taking in terms of land redistribution and occupation.
Okay. Let's move on to your organization. I'm glad to have you, both of you here, because it's been associated largely with Mr. Malema, and now we're seeing more and more of you. Now, one of the commentators on Business Day today said you are made up of failed business people, revolutionaries, all sorts, that you're all over the place in an ideological sense. What are you? What do you represent?
If you look at the founding manifesto, it's very clearly characterized as we're a Marxist-Leninist Fanonian movement. Now, that means we're anti-capitalist, essentially. And secondly, we understand, if you follow Fanon, who basically is the inspiration of all the radical black thought in the world that will give us black consciousness.
Andile, I have to stop you there, because you're sitting next to a capitalist. You're sitting in EFF with people. You wrote about an open letter to Julius Malema on July 26, 2011, in which he said, you have been an opportunist who raised these issues, the issues you've been talking about, not to solve them, but to trick the poor who have been waiting for a better life for all.
But okay, before you go there, what do you mean by capitalist? Who is capitalist? Me?
But
when is capitalist? I don't own any means of production. I do not own any factory.
You got given,
I do not employ any labor.
You got given millions of rand by the NYDA to run a magazine.
No,
that's the means of production. You're producing a magazine.
I think that is the confusion that has characterized you for a very long time and must be dismissed.
Well, help me.
What capitalist is not people who deal with these petty business things and everything else, and the
so are you saying the magazine Lucha that you founded with money from the NYDA is a petty little business?
No, it was not even. It was about issue of production of a magazine. It was not about owning the means of production. The means of production refers to big land, to big factories, and all these things that employ labor. That was just a service that we're rendering, like you did yourself. Someone will find a long time ago when you were publishing the newspaper. Were you calling yourself a capitalist when you're doing that?
No, I was the editor. You were an owner in that. No, you were a capitalist. You were an owner. You aim to make profit. But let's talk about you explaining that this coherent force.
It's historical also. For the first time, we see Fanon dealing with, in our view, with the larger question of anti-capitalism and global capitalism. It has destroyed the world and continues to destroy the world, and focusing on the experience of black people. Now, it is important, I do think, that you need to understand what capitalism is. Spaza shop owners, they own, but doesn't mean that they are capitalists. You can't reduce capitalism to that.
You're spitting in the faces of poor people when you say someone who, it's like
but
saying,
I mean,
are you saying Kanye Kanyidlomo's funding of 34 million rand from the NEF is not.
She's not a capitalist. 34 million doesn't make you a capitalist. You don't understand the structure of the economy or the size of South African economy. We're talking about trillions. We're talking, if you look at just about how much these few people own the South African economy.
So it doesn't matter.
She's just a business person. Of course, we will not accept that
like
money
someone
should
who
go.
owns a magazine is a business person.
Absolutely. I mean, like you are not a capitalist. You get lots of money to run these sort of things, but I will not call you a capitalist.
And if you thought you were a capitalist,
I
then
was
you
a
misled
manager
yourself.
in a publishing company. I wasn't an owner.
It doesn't matter, but people get shares. I mean, when people buy shares, are you saying the poor working class people in this country who buy shares from Sasol and Zalo and so on, those make that? No, I think we need to conceptually get some things clear. Capitalism is not about this small ownership. We're talking about Oppenheimer level. We're talking about Motsepe level. We're talking about Ramaphosa level.
Rupert's,
exactly, Rupert's. That's what we're talking about.
Those are the people are talking about, not small traders and everything.
Like Floyd Shivambu. Let's move on, guys. We've got only 2 minutes to go. People have said this is another COPE. It's going to make a lot of noise, and then after the election, the contradictions that are alleged to exist among you will manifest, and you will won't be around in 2019.
EFF will never be like COPE. It will never
Why
be
not?
like any. We are a grassroots movement that is based on the people. We're not a group of elite people who are concerned about office politics and positions of power. Majority of us in the leadership of EFF are not even thinking about going to parliament. Our obsession is about organizing workers. It's about organizing the community on the ground. It's about organizing the protest movement. And that can never be a movement that dies as long as there are socio-economic crises in South Africa.
But Andile, as I said, had already said, one of your leaders is an opportunist who raises all these issues that you rightly raised.
Let's deal with that. Let's deal with that. There's a context. As long as our Commander-in-Chief, Julius Malema, was within the ANC from our perspective, trying to raise these issues, it was not going to happen. And it was trapping people inside the ANC, which is not committed. Of course, they actually expelled him to prove the point that we're making, that you cannot transform South Africa fundamentally in the interest of the majority as long as that project is run by the ANC. Now we are on the same side. We can see the ANC is the problem, and we'll give South Africa a new hope.
Mngxitama, thanks so much for your time. Floyd Shivambu, I want to give you 5 seconds to tell me what percentage will EFF get next year?
No, we're going to get an absolute majority of the South Africa's working class and the poor.
Absolute majority?
Yes, of the South Africa's working class and the poor, we're going to vote in the general elections. We're confident of victory in the general elections next year.
Thanks so much. Andile, Mngxitama, thanks both of you. I hope to see you in the run-up to the election next year. After the break, our winner and loser of the week. Stay with us.